Today I'm going to clarify some of the discussion of the previous video talking about reciting mantras and how to recite mantras or know when one is reciting mantras correctly or not. So let's get started. Basically, we talked in the previous video about knowing the difference between the rope of mindfulness and the spider thread of mindfulness, and the difference between the two. So the difference is that when we hear about the rope of mindfulness, this is really a misnomer. It's a terribly wrong-headed description about how to hold a mantra. You know, we're not dominating the mantra and lording over the mantra. Reciting the mantra is a very delicate interaction and subtle interaction with the mantra. So many times I've been asked, how do I know I'm reciting a mantra correctly? And the correct answer is, if you know you're reciting it, you're not reciting it correctly. In other words, the mantra is a vehicle to introduce us to an aspect of our mind, a more subtle aspect than our everyday awareness. If we're wondering if we're reciting a mantra correctly, if our pronunciation is right, if we're missing syllables and so forth, we're on a very conventional level of recitation, in that the mantra, we're not allowing the mantra to fulfill its purpose. So let us begin by saying it's not the place in a meditation practice of reciting a mantra to correct ourselves, to correct our recitation, to see if our memory is correct or incorrect, if our pronunciation is correct or incorrect, if we're missing syllables and so forth. That is not done during the meditation proper. That exercise is done on our own time, not the time when we're meditating. So, in a sense, this adds a burden and relieves a burden. It adds a burden in that, aside from our scheduled meditation, our daily scheduled meditation, we're going to have to allot some time just for brushing up on our pronunciation, our correctness or lack of correctness on the mantra itself. Now, certain mantras are obviously not a problem. Om Mani Padme Hum is a 6-syllable mantra, and Om is obviously a 1-syllable mantra. And there's everything that goes on in between to the very long Shurangama mantra, which is, I believe, around 520 lines and many, many syllables. But even on very short mantras, for example, Om Mani Padme Hum, people can wonder if they're reciting it correctly. So all of that time that when we want to investigate that, we do on our own time. We don't do it on our meditation time. So that adds a burden, but it also relieves a burden, because when we're actually sitting in meditation and employing the mantra to fulfill its purpose of introducing us to the nature of the mind, we're not going to be troubled by wondering about, correctness and so forth. We're going to be free of that. So we can accept the fact that, yeah, I'm probably reciting it incorrectly, but let me see where it takes me. So if we do that, it affords a much needed sense of freedom from conventional worries. Because the truth of the matter is, even if technically we are not reciting the mantra perfectly, and we are missing some syllables, we're mispronouncing some syllables, if our effort is correct and our heart is sincere, the mantra can nevertheless do its work. And it can do its work quite perfectly. So we should allow that to happen. We know that it's happening when we gradually lose awareness of recitation altogether. This doesn't mean that we're not reciting. If we're not reciting and we simply space out, something will tap us on the shoulder and say, well, where did you go? Where you been? And, that's called, in Chan, falling into the guest position. So let me say a few words about the host and guest positions. The analogy begins with Shu Yun talking about it. He says, imagine a host of an inn high up in the mountains, and that innkeeper throughout the day receives many guests who stop by and have a tea and maybe a snack, and then they go on their way. Now, I lived in the Himalayas for a year straight, and I've been up there many times. And there's tea stalls throughout the Himalayas. And you usually don't spend more than a half hour in any one of them. You have a cup of tea and traditionally a few biscuits, and then you move on. So the innkeeper, he sees many travelers going up and down the mountain. And he talks different stories with them. Some of them he knows better than others. And we can imagine that as he sees many come and go, that once in a while he may get involved with one of his guests, talking to one of his guests, and as the guest leaves, walk out with the guest. Lost in conversation. Now, this is called falling from the host position to the guest position, because his job is to manage the inn. Now, he got caught up in conversation with the guest and walked outside with the guest, and then something taps him on the shoulder and says, hey, you got other guests in the lodge. You got to go back there and take care of them. So he, again, assumes the host position. Now, the same thing happens in mantra recitation. You may forget the mantra altogether, forget you're reciting it, and then something taps you on the shoulder and says, well, where did you go? Well, we fell from the host position, where we're actually doing what we're supposed to be doing, to the guest position, where we followed some guest thought out and got lost in some daydreaming and so forth. That's the guest position. So in mantra recitation, that happens. We may forget completely that we're reciting a mantra and drift off somewhere, and we're suddenly aware that we have lost awareness of the mantra and we have to bring our mind back. Now this is really kind of grossly falling back. Reciting a mantra where you fall back like that is an indication that it's not the fault of the way you're reciting it or anything. You just don't have the focus and sincerity to recite it correctly. So that's a very coarse kind of losing the mantra. We want to avoid that altogether. But on the other hand, we want to avoid dominating the mantra, like having our attention on the mantra as if it's some kind of magical potion that, if done right, will free us, liberate us from our obstacles. That's not the job of the mantra. The mantra doesn't destroy, get rid of, or block anything. All the mantra does is show us how to get out of the way of ourselves and allow the nature of the mind to appear before our awareness. So the mantra is really kind of like an infant that's already well fed but crying anyway, a teether. Now everyone knows that a teether is very pacifying for an infant, and a crying baby will be very content with the teether and go from a crying state and a very agitated state of mind to a very pacified state of mind. And in fact, that's why they're called pacifiers. So in the same way, a mantra pacifies the mind. There's no power in a mantra that happens independent of our proper interaction with it, our proper employment of it. So it's a two-way street. We empower the mantra, and the mantra empowers us. The two have to go together. Our participation, correct participation, and the mantra both play their part, neither autonomously. Both happen dependent on each other. There's mutual dependence between the mantra and the participant that's reciting the mantra, the meditator. So we have to keep in mind that it's kind of a dynamic relationship we're establishing with the mantra. Like we're interacting with it and becoming one with it in a very real way, and dissolving ourselves into the mantra, and the mantra dissolving into us. And that's why when a mantra is really correctly recited, we're not aware that we're reciting it. As I said in the last video, that when Ramana Maharshi, is one of the greatest sages in the last 200-300 years, was asked, how do I know when I'm reciting a mantra correctly? His answer was, 4 or 5 words? When you're reciting it, you're not reciting it correctly. So maybe that's 8 words. It's all there. That says it all. So what it means is that the intention is that if you do know you're reciting it, you're not really blending with the mantra, nor is the mantra merging with you. You have one that's in opposition to the other, but there is no such real opposition in correct recitation. There's no awareness of the mantra, and there's no awareness of the one reciting the mantra. The two dissolve into each other. So in practice, that means that when you recite a mantra, it gradually dissolves, and your awareness of reciting it gradually dissolves until there's no such awareness of reciting it or the mantra or anything else. How long this goes on depends all upon an individual's samadhi power. Eventually, you emerge from the recitation, and you will know that you have been reciting it all along, but unaware of it. You come out very naturally. There's nothing that taps you on the shoulder and says, "Where did you go?" You come out and you know, "Oh, gee whiz, I've been reciting it all along." You look at the clock and maybe it's been a whole hour or something. And gee, the whole hour came and here I am. When you emerge, you're reciting the same mantra that you were when you entered. The awareness of the nature of the mind, or a level of awareness of the nature of mind. There's many levels of awareness of the nature of the mind. Some say principally there's 10, but I don't know. If you look at the 10 or 12 ox herding pictures, it kind of gives you a little indication, but there's better lists than that, which I won't go into. But there are many levels. But those levels increase in subtleness as we practice. So, in summing up, one of the things Master Wa always taught me when I was reciting mantras was never use force. Never use force. And what he meant by that is what I'm talking about is the rope of mindfulness. This is such a terrible misnomer. Mindfulness is very subtle. You're not mindful with a rope. You're mindful with a really tiny thread of awareness. That's correct. That tiny thread of awareness is holding the mantra. Barely holding it, but holding it. So, never use force. All uncertainty about proper recitation or so is kind of academic, and it shouldn't be done on one's meditation time. So when we meditate as best we can and just go for it, with the understanding that we'll set a separate time if we have any doubts about the correctness and incorrectness and so forth. For example, I don't know the meaning of a lot of mantras that I recite, so I'll set a different time of day aside to maybe look up translations and so forth. I don't do it on my meditation time. So meditation is a chance just to use it as best you can and see where it takes you. And then always close each session with a transference of merit. for the benefit of other people. So that's it. And that, what I've said, applies to most meditation practices, whether it's visualization of mandalas and so forth. Even analytical meditation, when you're investigating a topic of meditation through reasoning and analysis, like some of Nagarjuna's karikas, they're called, verses. When you're practicing these kind of meditations, maybe meditating on the 12 conditioned links of conditioned co-production and so forth, you do the best you can. And if, when in your analysis you realize that you don't know such and such, you don't wonder about how it is or how it isn't, you just go on with your analysis. And later on you can look at a book or think about it in a normal sort of way, discursive way. So that's it. That's the talk, and I hope it benefits someone.